This is APYouthNet.
Welcome to the APYouthNet talk show, where we look at employment issues facing young people in Asia and the Pacific. As of April 2013, 1.5 billion people live in countries with ongoing conflicts. Conflicts destroy socioeconomic infrastructure, the means of production, natural and human resources, and vast numbers of jobs. From the International Labour Organization, I'm Matthew Koniak. In this show, we would explore how young people in conflict areas can help themselves in the world of work and what the international community can do. Today, I'm joined from Kabul by Herve Berger of the ILO Senior Coordinator for Afghanistan. Conflict clearly reduces the quantity and also the quality of work that is available. What does it mean for young people who are looking for the first job?
Yes, I think in countries like Afghanistan, the challenge is even higher than it is in the rest of the world for youth to find employment. Just to put it in the context, in Afghanistan you have today around 48 to 50% of the population, of the working population, who is underemployed, and around 7% who are unemployed. But I think the important percent is underemployment, because in a country like Afghanistan, you cannot afford not to work. There's no social protection, no social security systems in place to talk of, So in that context, and with a young population like Afghanistan has, close to 50% of the population is under the age of 15, you're seeing basically 400,000 to half a million new entrants to the labor market yearly, every year. So with that kind of situation, you can imagine how daunting it is for young people in Afghanistan to find employment. So is it difficult, and what challenges are they facing? Numerous challenges, of course.
Hervé, yes, you're talking about all these young people coming to the labor market every year. I'd like to turn to half of these young people. I'd like to turn to young women, because they are vulnerable to armed, to sexual violence during the conflict. And specifically in Afghanistan, women and women's rights were suppressed for many years. What opportunities exist for them?
Well, I think you're hitting here probably on the most difficult sector of the young population. Women in Afghanistan, for the most part, are, due to traditions and due to cultural reasons, living mainly once they reach puberty in the house. They have very little access to the market, so there are very few women who are able to actually access the market and have employment. You have some. We've had examples here in Afghanistan, which ILO in fact has helped with some training in terms of small and micro enterprise, and through that they've actually developed their BDS as opportunities. But for the vast majority, they're working only within the home. Of course, in the household, they're working, of course, cooking and all the household chores that you have. Young women as well. In fact, the NRVA from 2007 and 8 indicates that the average working hours of young women in the home and in other jobs is around 70 hours or more a week. So there's a very high, intense work for women, but only in the home and very often unpaid work.
And thinking of these young people who have been through the conflict, particularly I'm thinking of the former combatants, from a skills perspective now, and in regards to what the ILO does in Afghanistan, what can we do to help those impacted young people with skills training? And I'm focusing really on those former combatants.
Well, I think the first thing we need to be doing is make sure that whatever training we do provide to ex-combatants is based on the market demand. There's been much too much training provided in Afghanistan by civil society and other organizations, which has not taken into account the market situation. We've seen this in a recent study that the ILO has undertaken for UNHCR on returnees. And because of this, a lot of people are not actually getting sustainable employment. So that would be the first thing. And then, of course, take into account, in light of the market information, also the wishes and desires and the past experience of the ex-combatants in terms of skills they may come with already, even if it's not certified skill, and the experience they may come with, and make use of that in trying to provide them with employment opportunities.
And Hervé, one area of particular importance is that of the school-to-work transition. Transitioning really from school to work is of utmost importance. Do we have the right mechanisms, the right systems in place in Afghanistan to secure that this transition is smooth for young women and men?
Well, I'm glad you're asking the question, Mathieu, because I think this is really quite important. One of the challenges, I think, for young adults in Afghanistan is to have skills that are relevant for the labor market. And it would be really very useful if in schools currently in Afghanistan, which is not the case now, give a lot more focus to helping young adults prepare themselves for entering the labor market. And that would mean learning how to behave and how to what to expect when they go into to find a job in the private sector, but also particularly to prepare them for entrepreneurship, basically. Because in an economy like that of Afghanistan, where close to 90% of the economy is an informal economy, entrepreneurship actually provides still the best opportunity for employment.
And we are discussing today at a time that is of great importance in the history of Afghanistan, because the US Army is gradually reducing its troop presence until 2014, after which the vast majority of foreign forces based in the country will have withdrawn. So, in your opinion, will this have any positive or negative impact on this issue of youth employment?
I think it will contribute to increasing the challenge for young people to find jobs, because currently with currently is around 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. You can imagine that they are using lots of services, whether it's through this transport, whether it's services from mobile telephones, whether it is food, water, whatever it may be, and people who are working on the different bases, cleaning, for example, and so forth, kind of small jobs. For each person who's working on an American base or ISAF base, whether it's in Kabul or within a province, there usually is a whole family that relies on that one income. So of course, when these people will lose their jobs, you're going to have significant impact on increasing certainly the underemployment and in some cases the unemployment of existing workers, which of course will mean the competition for the few jobs that are out there will further increase.
And of course, skills training, employment, employability, all of this comes into place in an exercise that is currently taking place, which is the Afghan National Youth Policy, which is currently being drafted. Are you personally hopeful that the strategy will receive the full commitment from the government and that it will actually help young women and men in Afghanistan to secure decent jobs?
Well, I think the policy is, of course, going to be much broader than just youth employment, rather. Youth employment is one aspect of the policy. And I think the level of support it will receive will depend probably greatly on the way the policy itself is developed. It is my understanding that as we're talking, in fact, they're in process of doing a range of consultations across the country with youth and with government officials. So I'm hopeful that this policy will receive high support and high endorsement from the government. But of course, the key challenge will be then its implementation in actuality.
Herve, we are coming now to the end of the show. Before we close, is there any message, anything that you would like those who are listening to us, either the young people, governments, workers, employers, to hear, or maybe concretely regarding the situation in Afghanistan?
Well, I think more generally first with regards to the whole situation in Afghanistan, I think the fact is youth unemployment is critical for stability in this country at this moment in time. If we don't find an answer to the youth employment challenge in a country like Afghanistan, who's facing still an insurgency in many parts of the country, who also has one of the largest drug trafficking networks in the world, not to mention a growing problem with criminality, then it will have a big impact on the stability of this country and its ability to manage the transition and the years thereafter. So I think high priority needs to be given to youth employment as one of the ways to move this country forward into the future in a stable way.
Herve Berger, thank you very much for joining us from Kabul. And to you, log on the APYouthNet at www.apyouthnet.ilo.org for the latest on youth employment in Asia and the Pacific. From the ILO Regional Office for Asia and Pacific, thank you and goodbye.
This has been an APYouthNet production.